Our world is transforming faster than ever. Dynamic landscapes, changing energy needs. Now more than ever, it's key to recognize the revolutionary role that digitalization and AI will play in the energy transition journey. From machine learning to data-driven insights, augmented reality to digital twins, autonomous vehicles to robotics. How can we harness technologies to build energy systems that are safer, more sustainable and efficient? With Shell E4, we combine Shell's expertise with trailblazing ideas from world-class startups in India to inspire amazing innovations and breakthroughs. When we join forces, we can solve any challenge. We can make the world we live in better, cleaner and greener. Together, we can power progress. Welcome to Shell E4 Demo Day.
To get started, I would like to introduce Nitin Prasad, Country Chair from Shell India, to deliver the official welcome note, and Harry Breckelmans, Project and Technology Director, to deliver Shell's vision of energy transition.
Let me begin by wishing everyone well. I'm delighted to have you here today at the 5th Shell E4 Demo Day. Since its conception 5 years ago, E4 Demo Day has evolved from being a graduation event for the Shell E4 cohort companies to one of the most recognized, aspired for, and celebrated energy entrepreneurship conferences in India. For us at Shell, our purpose is to power progress together by providing more and cleaner energy solutions, and to achieve net zero emissions. A key part of this is achieved by collaborating with the right set of external partners who share our vision of a net zero emissions future. Through Shell E4, we strive to create an energy entrepreneurship ecosystem in India, and year after year, we partner with bright and exceptional startups to come, define, and deliver the new energy systems for India and for the world. Over the last few years, digital technology, and AI in particular, have seen innovative new trends emerge with immense potential to affect change and transform industries and services. This applies to our industry as well. Digital technology is a key enabler for our Powering Progress strategy. Digital technologies offer the possibility to design and operate entirely new energy systems at the device, plant, and regional scales, transforming the carbon footprint of these industrial processes. Digital technologies play a massive, game-changing role across the value chain towards our transition to a net zero emissions future. They can help in optimizing energy efficiency of operations, reducing the carbon footprint of our own operations, and offering smarter tracking, monitoring, and reporting of greenhouse emissions for ourselves and our customers, as well as supporting us on carbon offsets. They also help us to create new and innovative new carbon solutions, low carbon solutions for our customers. The spirit of digital innovation lies at the heart of this year's Demo Day. Over the next 2 days, we will explore and unlock the possibilities of digital technologies and AI in energy transition and the role of energy entrepreneurship in accelerating our net zero journey. Once again, I thank you for joining us today. I look forward to the incredible ideas that will emerge from this session and how we can inspire another generation of entrepreneurs to think about a low carbon future. On that note, I would like to welcome Harry Breckelmans, Projects and Technology Director, to share his opening remarks. Over to you, Harry.
Good morning and good afternoon. I'm Harry Breckelmans. I'm the Project and Technology Director at Shell. And I welcome you to day one of the Shell E4 Demo Days. I'm thrilled to be joining on this first day of such an impactful event for the energy ecosystem. You will witness fascinating topics and discussion today. Digitalization is a key enabler in the energy transition journey and will play a major role in creating sustainable solutions at scale and across the energy value chain. Clearly, there are many opportunities for digitalization and AI in energy transition to have a huge impact in our business and across the energy industry. I hope you will be inspired today and triggered to find more ideas and discussions around the topic that will help to accelerate the energy transition. And I personally believe that the energy transition and digitalization are two transformations that are really redefining our industry. And with that, we live in exciting times, full of opportunity. So to stay competitive and resilient in a changing world, Shell is responding to these two forces in three common ways: collaborating with others, building capability, and giving our customers choice. And therefore, since 2018, the E4 program from Shell India has grown a community of over 35 startups in different domains such as mobility solutions, energy management, clean technology, energy IoT applications, digital solutions, logistics, waste to value, to name just a few. And we've worked closely with the founders and their leadership teams to help them grow their companies. A number of these startups are already working towards pilot opportunities with different Shell businesses. And the Shell E4 program builds upon the company's global vision to support the energy sector's evolving ecosystem. We have a rich history of working with entrepreneurs across the energy value chain globally. And these entrepreneurs and their startups shall have access to our infrastructure, our expertise, capital, and of course our customers to help them accelerate their business growth and to test the commercial and technical viability of their business offering. These startups will benefit from Shell's technology labs in Bangalore, including our IT infrastructure, our resources, the network of partners, and of course customers. So they will have the opportunity to pitch their ideas to other potential investors brought in during the program. So once again, thank you all, and I wish you a fruitful two-day event. Best of luck for all startups and for others. Keep going.
Thank you, Nitin and Harry, for your wise words. Sharing our vision in energy transition and opportunities. We have got such an exciting and big day ahead of us. We'll have a pleasure of hearing from E4 startups who are setting their own directions for the future energy and helping accelerate the energy transition. For everyone tuning in virtually, let me tell you how you can actively participate during these pitches. You can invest. You have been given $50,000 worth virtual currency to invest in these startups found below in the video player. Let us know your favorites are. And the good news does not stop there. You can also connect with the startups if you are an investor or interested in commercial opportunities. Please do not hesitate to click on Contact Startup button on their profile pages found on this event platform. I don't want you all to keep waiting. Now let's introduce the Shell E4 2022 cohort. Our first startup learned and solves operational problems like an expert to improve energy, performance, and efficiency in manufacturing industries. But let's welcome on the stage Vamshi, co-founder of Uptime AI, and hear about it.
Manchali, and I am the founder and CTO of Uptime. AI expert solution to process industries to reliably fix the issues ahead of time. Can you play the slide? Yeah. So as we know, operational problems in heavy industries result in huge losses. Annually, operational losses are up to 10 million in a renewable industry, 50 million in a refinery, As an industry, it is close to 1 trillion annually. So as we know, this is not a new problem. However, as we can see from the losses, the problem is still at large. So there are traditional solutions which are 2-3 decades old, and also new age AI platforms which are trying to tackle this problem. So, but still there is a lot of scope for improvement. Traditional solutions are high effort to deploy and use because they use threshold-based methods. So if you use low thresholds, there are too many alerts and operators are inundated with them. If you use high thresholds, you may lose the issue. So basically, even when a overhaul happens or something, those thresholds has to be adjusted continuously. So typically, these methods are only used for critical equipment because they don't scale well. And coming to new age AI solution, they are inefficient right now because they don't connect the dots between data science and subject matter. So they do throw the alerts, but it is now up to the operator or subject matter expert to actually find the root cause and then fix the issue. Now, as we know, experts in plants, etc., are retiring in large numbers because of the harsh environments, etc. And so due to that, these alerts are now taking weeks to get fixed. And finally, because there is no feedback loop, these models, whatever are deployed, go stale very fast. And then again, data science have to come in back every 6 months, 1 year to retrain the models. Now, Uptime AI, with its AI expert solution, is solving this problem. So Uptime AI does 4 things. It predicts the issue well ahead of time. Then it diagnoses the issue to find the root cause. Then it suggests the steps of mitigation steps to fix the issue. And finally, to complete the loop, it auto-trains the model, so the models are always up to date. Uptime AI connects the dots between data science and domain expertise and integrates its own self-learning workflows to provide the first industry's AI assistant that mimics solving and learning as an expert does. Now, Uptime AI has multiple solutions. Uptime AI's no-code platform makes deployment of models very easy and fast. Traditionally, the model deployment takes weeks or months. With Uptime AI solution, it now takes just days or hours. It is possible because Uptime AI does not use any manual thresholds. Secondly, Uptime AI's patented system approach. With that system approach, we can diagnose the problems very fast. So Uptime AI does not stop at symptoms, but it goes deep and even finds the root cause across multiple equipment. And using Uptime AI's recommendation system, once a root cause is found, Uptime AI also tells how to fix that issue. This is possible because Uptime AI has digitized 1,000+ failure mode and recommendations. Finally, as we discussed, self-learning is one of the key concepts without which models go stale very fast. So Uptime AI's patent-pending feedback loops does 2 things. It extracts the best practices so that they are propagated across plants. And secondly, using the latest reinforcement techniques, models are automatically always up to sync. Yeah, and this is a small sample use case that we have done at one of our early clients who has realized his ROI within 3 months after deployment. And also, as we can see, the key metrics usually are how much time it took to deploy, how many alerts came, how much time it took to fix the issue. And client has seen almost 10x improvements in all the key metrics. This problem and solution has resonated very well in the industry, and we are honored to have some of the biggest names in the industry, like Petroleum Development Oman, BPCL, Tata Power, Nova Scotia, New Fortress Energy, Adani, GMR, etc., as one of our early backers. Our solution is currently live in multiple geographies, and it is live across North America, Middle East, India, and Asia. Apart from that, we are servicing clients across multiple sectors, like utilities, renewables, oil and gas, and refining. As for roadmap, as we can see, this is a very big opportunity. In phase 1, we are targeting the process industries because they are well regulated and there is already a lot of sensors and data available. So the SAM for this process industries is expected to be close to $10 billion per year. And coming to phase 2, we are targeting the discrete manufacturing industry, which is slightly under-instrumented, and typically we have to go with a hardware plus software solution there. And finally, in phase 3, where 5G becomes ubiquitous, ApplyMA can provide diagnosis for your connected cars, IIoT appliances, etc. Now, as we can see, this is a wide-ranging problem, and expertise is required across different domains. ApplyMA team has industry leaders in machine analytics, in cloud, big data, and software development, cutting-edge AI and ML. However, we know that software has to be backed up with domain knowledge. So ApplyMA's domain SME team has more than 200 years of experience among them. With a combination of this software and SME expertise, we are able to provide this solution. So thank you for Shell E4 team, and thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Uptime AI. That was a great pitch to start this year's event. And just a quick reminder for people who are tuning in virtually, you have been given $50,000 to invest on your favorite startups. So please start doing that. All right, I'm sure we are ready for our next startup, which is We Energy. They make the sun shine all day and all night. We Energy has created the Nucleus platform, which enables solar panels, battery storage, and loads work seamlessly together and delivers 24/7 clean, effective, and smart energy. Let's welcome Akshay Harikumar, founder and CEO of We Energy, to share some more unique things about his company.
Great to be here and great to see all of you. I'm Akshay from Venergy, and just giving a brief synopsis, we are building Nucleus, a clean energy automation platform that enables interoperability and interfacing between various distributed energy resources. And our aim is to build a clean, decentralized energy grid of the future. We incorporated in the year 2018. We've survived and got here through multiple business models, pivoting a lot. At the moment, I'm glad to share that we just successfully finished a beta deployment where we added 50 distributed energy resources, and we've been making them work efficiently together. We are now looking to raise 500K in a seed round. That's the basics, but yes, over the next 5 minutes, I'll run you through in much more detail about this company. So our energy grids are transforming from the picture on the left to the picture on the right. They're transforming into clean, decentralized systems. And at the heart of these decentralized systems are billions and billions of assets like distributed renewable energy, battery storage, and electric vehicles, even electric vehicle charging. Now, these distributed energy resources will be the heart of the utility of the future. However, we need to ensure that these work optimally together, and that is presently not there. Like, the symptoms of this would be like you have electric vehicles, but they're not charging with clean energy. What we are building at Venergy is exactly that, a platform that brings all clean energy assets together on one uniform platform. We aggregate and interoperate these loads to ensure that they work better together. The way we are going about this is we are making a platform. Now, a platform has multiple sides. On the one side, you're going to have prosumers. That would be anyone consuming or generating their own electricity. In a lot of cases, both. And that is at the heart of the new energy revolution. And on the other side, we have equipment manufacturers for these distributed energy resources and service providers, the biggest one being the energy grid, but also new age service providers like charge point operators, virtual power plants, microgrids, etc. And how are we going about building this platform? Well, The best way to build a multi-sided platform is to build it one side at a time. So we got here through a beta launch where, so the first couple of years we've been spending validating the market, validating the product, getting here. And last year we did our beta launch. Over the entire 2022, we did our beta launch where we had 50 distributed energy resources onboarded onto our platform. And these contribute to over 100 megawatt hours of clean energy managed. The best part, that's where we got validation of the market, was that we had an 80% conversion rate. So 80% of the people we approached ended up buying or opting for our solution, and all of them were paid pilots. Going forward, we would like to focus on the prosumer side of the platform in the next half of the year. And if we want to become a data business, it would definitely be getting more data. Getting more data would be the next step. 1 year from now, we hope to build out the other side of the platform, which would be the manufacturers and the service providers. At the end of 2023, we hope to onboard our first OEM and service provider, and subsequently we hope to be going forward towards our Series A. As part of our seed round, we are raising 500K. We are looking to increase our team, build out our product. We are looking at hardware integrations because unfortunately, not all energy assets are smart assets, so there needs to be a lot of integration and effort from our end. And of course, a lot of expenses that we can't avoid. But at the end of 1 year, we hope to roll out our solution to enterprise customers. We hope to increase the adoption of our solution for a residential client. And we hope to onboard our first OEM and the service provider, at which stage we will be ready for our next funding round. That is, I hope, a very brief overview. I hope to catch a lot of you later. So we have a stall in there, or we will be around all day. I hope to see a lot of you. Thank you.
Thank you, V-Energy. That was an incredible pitch. What an amazing day we are having today, isn't it? After the first startup pitches, I'm sure we all have felt the excitement that sounds innovation, and we can see it on the stage. Now it's time to introduce our first fireside chat of the event, where we have opportunity to hear more about the startup to scale up stories and their excited journey with Shell. Please welcome Thomas from C3 AI and Paul from Databricks.
Well, hello everybody. It's amazing to be with you. This is Dan, and welcome to all of our E4 startups today at the E4 Demo Day. What we wanted to do today was give a bit of insight into one of the key things that I know that all of you want to know about, which is how to scale, and how to scale with Shell. And I think who better to talk about that with than some of our key scale-up partners. Databricks has been with us, I think, since 2014 timeframe. And so Paul's with me here. He's been leading a lot of the journey. And I wanted to ask Paul a few questions just about advice around what does it take to scale. So Paul, maybe start. Tell me a little bit about Databricks and the company and what you're all about.
Yeah, thanks Dan, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to the E4 community. So it's a privilege. Databricks is a company that delivers basically a unified data platform to a lot of customers around the world that see the value of Delta. We'll come to that later. Of data to create better and more insights for their business, whatever that business is. Yeah, and we were founded in 2013, so it's obvious that Shell was one of the early adopters, and let's call it innovators with data with our platform. And back in the day, it was just Spark, right? It was just Spark, that was it. And we developed our product over the years to a fully integrated and unified data platform that delivers quality data sets, basically. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think, look, it's been an amazing journey to watch from the outside, and congratulations to you guys. I think the valuation is just crazy. But it wasn't always like that, right? I mean, you talked about where it started. I think it's fair to say the company went through a bit of a pivot in the sense that initially it was just the MPP engine, Spark, data processing. Now, of course, providing really an end-to-end data platform. Talk to me about that journey. You know, how did you go through that? What were you thinking? What guided you in that direction?
Yeah. No, it's so first of all, it's really difficult because the founders had an idea and they want to bring it to the market. You need customers to adopt on your vision. But how do you progress onwards? Because you're developing this project, you're doing a lot of engineering on it. But how do you develop to basically that's the ultimate goal of startups and scale-ups to grow. And in order to grow, I think you need the right people, you need to have a good strategy, you need to have an execution, and that delivers cash. That delivers growth, and therefore it's a continuous cycle. You can attract more people, etc. So, but there's one key element that I want to basically talk with you about that changed the game for us, which made us basically grow faster than we could. And that is the fact that we work together very closely with companies like Shell and others, but especially Shell, on our product development. So we listen to what you need as a company. And I think we translated that into our product really well. So a really good example is your colleague Bryce, who sits in your team, of course, as a chief technology advisor. He sits in our product advisory board. So he tells us what he wants to run his business. And that is super, super valuable. Yeah. So a couple of things. So I said Delta earlier. The reason why I said Delta when I meant data is we created Delta Lake on top of Spark to have an automated storage layer. That takes your data sets from let's say raw to refined to really your golden data sets where your data scientists can work on. And we developed that basically together with you. It's Delta Live tables, it's Databricks SQL, so yeah, that helped us a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic example because, as you say, the way that you put together that product advisory board, the way you really brought the right customer insights in, not just the general customer insights, but the right people giving you the right feedback on what the users really needed to scale the product. I think that was game changing. I think the other thing, if I can say so, that you did really well is thinking about how to build a center of excellence that could then develop the product across Shell. And I think that was really a step change in combination with some real focus areas that helped us to accelerate. And I think I wanted you to unpack that a little bit of, I know it's over 1,500 people now using the product across Shell. How do you get from an MPP engine with some great ideas that Bryce came up with to a 1,500 user adoption in a large company?
Yeah, that's all about scale. And we talked about it many times, and how to make sure that if you grow from 50 users to 1,500 users, how do you because they're all working on very valuable products and use cases, deliver, let's say, top and bottom line impact for your company. How do you maintain that level of quality? And we talked about skill a lot, and I think that if you teach one person to do something really well, and that person teaches two others, and they each teach two others, that scales really, really well. So the COE now exists of 6 people from Databricks and 12 people from Shell, and that will grow over time. And yeah, we've seen already that projects that we've delivered together deliver 10 times faster time to value than they have before. And I think that is super, super valuable because you deliver that value eventually. But what does it mean for your business or any other business if you can deliver that 10 times faster?
So final question, partnering with Shell, what would the one piece of advice that you would give to an early stage startup that's petrified of this large company with our big C&P engine? What advice would you give them?
Okay, I'm thinking about this because I'm thinking is it really all about open and transparency? Isn't there more? But it really comes down to that. And if you share that open mind and transparent mind, where you collaborate on projects, ideas, visions, and you work together with people that have the same state of mind, openness and transparency is the key thing for me that I feel really happening between our two companies.
Absolutely, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think for me, the big thing was, we have a lot of startups that try and hold it to themselves, that don't want to let us in, that don't want to have the conversation. I think what you guys did was different. Was you said, look, here we are. This is what we have. This is what we don't have. Now let's work together to make it better. Yeah. So I think just a fantastic story, and kudos to you guys for what you've done with the organization. I think in summary, a few takeaways for me, learning from these guys and watching their journey. Firstly, the ability to pivot, listening to your customers, thinking through what does it take, really being willing to change direction and to build the product in a way that is just what the customers need and responds to the right customer insights, including bringing them in through product advisory boards and so on. I think that the second thing, really thinking about how can we together scale up the ecosystem, train the trainer, bringing your expertise in and partnering deeply, but also finding ways to pass on knowledge to scale effectively through the organization. And then, of course, the final thing, openness and transparency. Yeah. Anything I missed, Paul?
Yeah, no, there's actually, I'm thinking of another thing. I'm a pretty old guy, and I've a long history in my career, which started in high-performance computing and then progressed into the data space. And what I've always said to people, if I talk about my career, is I also want to have fun with my customers. And it sounds very obvious, but it isn't. And as a relationship type of people or person that I am, I've always kind of missed that, because it was always about the transaction. And it's everything but the transaction, I would say. So if you trust each other, if you know each other, if you have also fun together, then I think you can progress way faster than you can before. And being here with you for the second year on Web Summit, sharing all these great ideas, I mean, that is testament from how we work together.
Well, look, it's amazing. Congratulations on the journey. I think some fantastic insights and advice. And we look forward to the next stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great to be with you all. My name is Dan Jevons. I'm the Vice President of Computational Science and Digital Innovation at Shell. Here with Tom Seymour, who's been a great friend and partner over the last few years. And of course, doesn't need any introduction, but long heritage in digital transformation, and of course has written books on the subject. So it's a real privilege, Tom, to be with you and to have this conversation. What we're going to do today is we're going to unpack a little bit the topic of digital transformation. I'm keen to learn from Tom. And then we're going to give a bit of an insight into some of the things that Shell's involved in and that C3's involved in, and some of our partners, to try to accelerate digital transformation in the energy sector. And then at the end, we'll hopefully have time for a few questions, and then Tom and I will be around for a bit of dialogue afterwards. So hopefully we'll get through that at a relatively quick pace. But Tom, let me start with this. I mean, you've seen it all. You've seen the database, the transformation in CRM, now the advent of AI, and of course this buzzword of digital transformation is really everywhere, and everyone's talking about it. Tell me from your perspective, is this really new? Is it something that, is it just hype, or do you think there's something behind it?
Well, that's a great question, and it's really fascinating. So when I got involved in the information technology business, I was I just finished grad school at the University of Illinois, did my graduate work in relational database theory, and went to work for a little startup with about $2 million in revenue, headed up by a guy named Larry Ellison. And so we went about building Oracle Corporation, and it turned out to be a pretty good idea. About 10 years later, and the worldwide market for information technology at that time was a couple $100 billion. 10 years later, we spun out, we thought about the application of information technology and communication technology to sales, marketing, and customer service. And started a company that some of you will remember called Siebel Systems, where we invented this market you know of as CRM, sales, marketing, customer service, internet self-service, product configuration, what have you. Today, that's a $120 billion market this year. And that was, Siebel was the fastest growing enterprise application software company in history. We sold that company back to Larry in 2006. And so now the information technology company business has grown quite a bit, and we're looking at the world in 2007 and 2008, and we think the next thing is about elastic cloud computing, big data, and the Internet of Things, okay, and predictive analytics. Understand at the time, revenue at AWS might have been $2 million, so this was all nascent. And you know, as I went around the world and, you know, talked with companies like, you know, I went to Shanghai and went to Beijing and went to Paris and, okay, and Copenhagen, New York, Chicago, you know, something fundamentally had changed because, you know, when we were at Oracle and we're selling relational database systems or later enterprise application software, ERP, manufacturing, CRM, you know, all of these decisions were made by the CIO, right? So you met with the chief information officer who would write these RFPs and then go decide to build a relational database system themselves or a CRM system themselves, and 2 years leadership fail and then come back and buy it from you. But you know, all of a sudden, as we go from company to company, we're being met in the first call by the CEO, chief executive officer is in the room, pounding at the table, mandating for this thing called digital transformation. And I found it just baffling. I was thinking, you know, digital transformation, I mean, what does this mean? Like, as opposed to what? As opposed to analog transformation. And so it was some years later, after I talked with these people for about 9 years, I wrote a book called Digital Transformation, and I finally figured it out. So what we're dealing with, I mean, if you look at the world roughly about 2020, you know, in the first 20 years of this century, you know, over 50% of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared. So there's had a mass extinction event going on in the corporate world. And we have all these companies with new DNA that we read about, the Teslas that are upending the automotive business, and the Ubers that are upending the transportation business, and the Amazons that are upending the retail business. And you think about what these companies with new DNA are doing, okay, they're basically using big data, predictive analytics, elastic cloud computing, okay, and the Internet of Things to completely change everything. Meanwhile, how many retail stores closed in the United States last year? That would be 10,000. And so we're you know, now this is an existential event, and it's perceived of as an existential event. And so I think it is very real. I mean, this is like, I was there when companies were not going to adopt mini computers. Believe me, I was there. I was there when companies were not going to adopt Ethernet. Even digital equipment wouldn't adopt Ethernet. How did that work for them, for those of you that remember what digital equipment was? Okay, I was there when people were not going to adopt personal computers, relational databases, enterprise application software. And I was there, you know, customers in this generation where they lean back in the boardroom with their arms crossed and explain, you know, Tom, what don't you understand about how our data are never going to be in the public cloud? Well, get a grip. Your data are going to be in the public cloud. So, you know, so it's an existential. I mean, what would have happened to companies that didn't adopt ERP? I mean, they wouldn't exist, right? What would have happened to the companies that didn't adopt mini computers or Ethernet or personal computers? They wouldn't exist. So basically, those CIOs get fired and they get replaced by somebody who adopts the technology. So if we look at enterprise, I'll go another 120 seconds with this. So enterprise application software was about taking relational database systems. We built tools on top of that. And then we built ERP systems and CRM systems that tell us with absolutely perfect hindsight what our inventory levels were, what our customer churn levels were, what our failure levels was, okay, what our cash levels were. Now, what this new enterprise AI, and some enterprise application software is roughly a $500 billion business this year. Now, in 4 years, this area of enterprise AI is a $600 billion business. And it is about taking those applications and not replacing them. It's about making them what these applications tell us, in perfect 2020 hindsight, what happened 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 12 months ago. When we make these applications predictive, with predictive analytics like you are doing at massive scale, and Shell, I would say, is the largest AI deployment on the planet in both classified and non-classified space, okay? We're making these applications predictive, so it tells us not what our inventory levels were, who cares? It tells us what are the inventory levels we need in each bin from here to Shenzhen to meet the demand function so we can deliver on time in full. It tells us who cares what our customer churn was 6 months ago. We want to know which customers are going to leave in the next 6 months so we can save them. Who cares how many devices failed in the last 6 months? We want to know which device is going to fail next so we can prevent a failure on an offshore oil rig. What's the cost of a failure on an offshore oil rig? CBP for details. Okay, it's like incalculable. So this is what I think is predictive analytics is all about. It's not an entire, you can think about it as an entire replacement market for everything we've done in enterprise application software in the last 3 decades. So it is a big business, and it will be adopted, is being adopted at rapid scale in aerospace, in defense, intelligence, in banking, in travel, transportation, chemical, pharmaceutical, oil and gas, energy, and it is unstoppable.
I love it. And obviously, Tom, I've had the privilege of learning from all of that experience that you've brought to bear in this, but I mean, I think we both know that whilst it's obvious the direction of travel and where this is all going to end up, the process of getting there is really, really hard. And I think, as you know, I've made my fair share of mistakes along the way, including some of you referred to, trying to build your own platform and trying to deploy that at scale. But also, the challenge for a lot of companies is really mind-boggling, to be honest, because you're talking about, to your point, ripping out the way in which business has been done in the past and completely rethinking the whole way in which processes, workflows happen. So maybe from your experience, why is it so hard, other than the obvious? But what is it that companies you're dealing with are struggling with? And also, what's the path through? So what are the hallmarks of being successful in making this change for conventional companies that are now faced with these new tech-native competitors that were born in the digital age?
Well, what the CIO wants to do is he or she wants to build it himself, right? And so when we brought relational database technology to market in the early 80s, everybody was going to build their own. I mean, how many companies succeeded in building their own relational database system? I mean, count one. Okay. When we brought ERP systems to market, okay, in say late 80s, okay, with SAP and Oracle and others, the alternative was to build it yourself. How many companies successfully built their own ERP system? That would be no one. Now, they all tried. Okay. Now, as we bring this, so as it relates to enterprise AI, what did everybody try to do? I mean, just come on. There's no way they didn't try to do it. Shell. IBM spent scores of billions, GE spent 6 billion over 10 years trying to do this. JP Morgan Chase is, this guy said, I think I got something like a $1 billion budget to build their own, when the $1 billion is gone, Jamie will give us a call, okay? Now they try to build it themselves, it always comes crashing down around them. And then working with you and learning from you and people like you, we trivialized the problems of these problems that used to be enormously hard. These problems of aggregating hundreds of data sources, thousands of sensors. Some of these data are arrived from millions of sensors, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of sensors, where these data are arriving at 90 Hz cycles and being aggregated those data in a unified federated image. That used to be a hugely non-trivial problem, and you have demonstrated that it's trivial. Okay. Then we have the scaling issues to be able to process these issues, these applications at scale, and we do this today with tens of thousands of virtual machines running, doing 24-bit floating point operations at 8 gigahertz cycles. Today we're able to manage machine learning pipelines. You manage machine learning pipelines with millions of machine learning algorithms in these pipelines. So we've trivialized what used to be the hard part. And now we have kind of dog catches bus. And so Dan, what I want to know is as I would say, of all the companies in the world that are doing this, I mean, Shell is doing it at the largest scale, to the greatest economic, social, and benefit of any organization that I'm aware of. And we're pretty aware of what's going on. So when you get to dog catches bus, you get to change management, because everybody's scared to death of AI. Like, for a lot of reasons, they're scared of AI. So how, Dan, do you think about that? I mean, because that's really the hard part. That's where you make a big of the stuff about building the technology stack. We spent 10 years in $1 billion. Yeah, $1 billion, okay, building it. And, so that was an interesting engineering problem, but I would say trivial compared to how many employees do you have at Shell?
80-something.
80,000?
Yeah.
To change the way they do their jobs every day and to trust this horribly scary thing called AI. How do you think about that? Because that's the key to success.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, so I think you're spot on. And by the way, I think, as you said, the engineering problems have been non-trivial, and I think, as you say, the technology has really caught up, which helps hugely. That's not to say we've solved all the problems, but we have made great progress. I think the big thing for us has been looking at culture in a very, very different way. And I've been extremely fortunate with a leadership team that had a very clear view of where we wanted to go. So if you look at what Shell's trying to do, we're really trying to transform the company. We've said we want to be net zero by 2050 or sooner. And we want to reduce our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 50% by 2030. Now, if you think about that for one of the world's largest energy companies, those goals are really, really ambitious, and it's really hard to do. And I think, to your point, it starts with compelling purpose and a rallying call from the top of the house that says, if we're going to hit those targets that we've now put out publicly to the market, we need to change. And we need to change quickly, and we need to accelerate the change. And of course, the great news is that digital technology is one of the easier technologies to deploy quickly into that space. Because if you want to deploy, as you know, a very large refining plant or a new solar park or a wind farm, those things, which we can make lower carbon, of course, take time. Digital technology we can deploy very, very quickly. And so I think for us, the benefit that I had was with that compelling purpose, we had a really clear reason to go after a very, very extensive deployment of AI. And I benefited from that in terms of having tailwinds versus headwinds in terms of the desire to move the company in this direction. That doesn't get you there, by the way. So that gets you halfway because you have at least the support to do what needs to be done. I think the second part, though, which has been really key, is that we focused on community and we focused on partnerships. And I think those are the two hallmarks that I think have really helped us in doing what we've done. I think the first, if I talk about community, we now have 10,000 people in Shell who are part of something which we call the Shell.ai network. And this is really a network which is focused on change management. It's not focused on AI, it's focused on helping people understand what AI can do for them. And as you will know, that's a non-trivial problem because this is anathema to a lot of the people in the organization in terms of the way it's going to change their work processes. And so for us, that Shell.ai community has been the real hallmark of how we've tried to think about embedding AI into the organization. So purpose, community, the final thing is being a bit humble, to be brutally honest. I think I've learned in this space, as I said, I think I made a few mistakes early on, but recognizing that you can't do it all yourself, that you need to work with technology partners and you need to work as part of an ecosystem. And really the principles that we've adopted are kind of, I boil them down to three things. Firstly, we need to work in a way where the data is open and accessible and integrated. And we have consistent ways of storing data, ideally as close to the open source community as we can. We need to work with partners who have great technology, typically commercial technology, because then it's supported and maintained and robust and enterprise grade. But that software then needs to be interoperable. So you need open APIs and integrations that allow you to bring those things together. So I think that's really some of the things that we've been thinking about how we do this at scale. And I think, you know, as I said, huge credit to you guys. You've been a fantastic partner on the journey, and we've learned an enormous amount from you about product management, about software engineering, about deployment, about enterprise grade, about support. But maybe sort of, you know, bringing this section to the close before we see some of the cool tech that we've been talking about, which I think is a great opportunity. What I wanted to ask you is kind of where is this going? So looking at where we are now, you know, we're in a turbulent time, the markets are challenging, there's a lot going on in the world. What do you see the future being for digital transformation, and what's going to happen in the next 5 years?
Well, there is the technical aspect of making these applications predictive, okay? And there is no board and no CEO in 5 years that is going to accept a report on where the supply chain failed in the last 6 months. Hard stop, that is going to be an unacceptable report, okay? They're going to know nor what the customer churn levels were, nor what the product failure rate was, okay? Okay, that CEO will not be there, okay? The CEO who will be in that boardroom will be reporting about, you know, where we identified weaknesses in our supply chain and remediated them before the problem happened, okay? That will be the CEO and the Chief Digital Officer, okay, who reports about what, you know, failures we predicted, okay, in our value chain and prevented. Which customers we identified who were going to leave us, okay, and we saved. We're not going to be acceptable at a bank to report AML, anti-money laundering, on exactly how many fraudulent events took place in the last 6 months. The report has got to be about which fraudulent events we identified in real time and prevented. So hard stop, 100% of the companies will have adopted. Predictive will be just a mandatory requirement. Now, the people who succeed, I'm arguing that the ability to do that, we have trivialized that with the work that you've done, that we've done, the people at Google Cloud have done, Microsoft, others, we have trivialized that problem. The next generation of leaders are the leaders that are going to be able to fundamentally change the way that their workforces think. And so I ask you, Dan, we look at, I know I'm going to get canceled for this. Okay, but we have Shell. I mean, come on, think Shell. This is a yucky, old, more than 100-year-old, sludgy oil and gas company, right? I mean, everybody knows that, okay? But no, I mean, that's not Shell today. Shell is a leading edge, okay, you know, hotbed of digital innovation. Okay, this is what Shell looks like, certainly in the oil and gas industry and in the world at large. And the other thing, I mean, let's talk about Shell. Shell is, I think, the 5th largest company in the world. Used to be roughly a $300 billion business last time I checked. I don't know what it is today, but plus or minus something. Okay, then what are companies like that all about? It's all about not invented here. Hey guys, go out and look at what's going on. I mean, not invented here isn't something you repel. Not invented here is something you reach out and embrace at Shell. I mean, look, it's going on every minute of every day, all over the world, and on this floor is to find all these little startups with all these young people and bright ideas and say, how can you become part of the Shell ecosystem? And as somebody who has spent his career, you know, building startups and innovation, for those of you who have the opportunity to innovate with Shell and be part of the Shell ecosystem, I can tell you it is the professional privilege of a lifetime. Your company will be better, your products will be better. Okay, you will have the opportunity to work with bright, switched, turned on people, and you will be able to, you know, to work on problems that will just have enormous social benefit that will fundamentally change the world. So, but you know, how do you get from there? How do you get from not invented here to not invented here? I mean, that's a big change. I mean, how did that happen?
It's a big change, and I think, look, I think the big thing is, it comes back to the purpose point, Tom, right? The challenge is that I think there was a real recognition at some point that we couldn't do it on our own. Because we have this huge challenge of energy transition. How do you get there Well, the only way you do it is if you change a societal energy system. And to do that, you have to say, look, it's okay if it wasn't invented here, as long as it's going to get us there.
Thank you, Thomas and Paul, for an engaging conversation. Today is all about celebrating innovation, growth, and collaboration. Startups, mentors, and how Shell has built the bridge between them. In our next chat, we'll bring another great startup success story where Daniel Raj David, CEO and co-founder of Detect Technologies, will share his success path with Hari Ramani, GM Digitalization Shell India.
Thank you, Devki. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, thanks. Amazing day. Thank you so much for joining us here. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here. For those that don't know me, I'm Hari Ramani, General Manager for Digital Innovation. And I'll come and introduce our guest here in just a second. But today is a lot about startups, right? And the ecosystem that they operate in. And there's a big milestone that every startup really, really wants to achieve sometime in their journey. And it's all about being called that scale up, which is how do you get to those set of implementations, deployments, customers, where you can then start identifying yourself as a scale up because you achieve scale. We heard about a couple of stories from two entities that have worked very closely with Shell. And it was a very interesting perspective on how they went through that journey and what their perspectives were. But there's one thing different about the next guest that we have here, who's also going to talk about their journey, their organization's journey with us. The most important element, the big differentiator is, they're actually a member of E4. They were among the very early cohorts at E4, and they've actually scaled up. And not only have they scaled up, they've actually achieved an investment from Shell Ventures in that journey, which means not only did Shell bring them in via E4, we've actually looked at them with so much potential that we went ahead and took a big stake in them when we actually went into the next round of funding. Without much ado, I'm going to introduce you to our guest, and I'm going to get him to talk a little about himself. Daniel from Detect. A big round, please.
Yeah, just a quick sound check as well. Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah.
I'm audible? Okay, perfect. Want me to do a quick intro of the org?
Please do that.
Okay, perfect. So hey everybody, I'm Daniel. I'm one of the founders of Detect Technologies, mechanical engineer by background, and started Detect actually with my co-founders back in university. So I'm a born and raised Chennai boy. Spent most of my life working on engineering, but the vision for what we wanted Detect to be is one thing that's remained consistent since before we started the company, right? So our vision was to make the world a safer place through building actionable artificial intelligence, right? And this took many forms when we started. For those of you in the E4 portfolio, you might have seen in the board there was something about what we do with sensors and pipeline integrity management and so on. We've pivoted multiple times to actually bring something of value, and I'll be talking through that journey as well today. But today what we are is, we are one of the fastest growing industrial AI companies in the world, the fastest in Asia, and the largest scaled in India. We started as 4 co-founders. Today we are close to 500 people spread out across the world. We've raised more than $45 million in capital. We have offices in India, Singapore, Dubai, and Houston as well, where I'm largely based out of. So I'll probably get into more details over the course of the conversation, but super happy to be here and a pleasure to be here with you, Hari.
Thank you, Dan. It's fantastic to hear, and it's quite inspiring to hear that story. Maybe we'll start with, you've achieved the tag of scale up, but give us a bit of an indication of what that scale looks like. Maybe start with your scope currently in Shell on what you're actually doing.
Absolutely. So just as a description, right, of what we do, I think many of you may or may not be in the industrial segment, so I'll simplify it. Basically what we do is, how many of you have used Google Photos over here? By just show of hands, quite a few of you, right? So what does Google Photos do? Google Photos can take any set of images from your phone and tell you what's a dog, what's a cat, what's your face, what is someone else's face. Now, the way Google or anyone else has done it is they've taken data from consumers, trained what their data means, and it tells you what you're looking at, right? Except people like Google, Amazon can't do this for industrial data because most of the data or camera data you see within the industrial segment is all confidential, right? As a result, you have no access to anything. So what we did was we started by saying, hey, what if you have an intelligent system? I'm sure we had Tom in the previous talk that was talking about, AI as a whole. We, of course, are not a company that has $1 billion of capital. We were just talking about this before. We have a little bit of capital, so we had to pick and choose our problems, right? So we decided most of your safety risks that you see within an industrial segment, somebody walking under a suspended load, someone operating hot work but no fire blanket. Many of you before entering here have done a safety drill before entering Shell, right? You've seen those safety videos. How do you automate the detection of that? And can that be done with visual data? Most of safety today is done with visual data. So that is overall the product. We have a product that can plug into any camera system, drone system, or any visual device. It can be your rear-view cameras, and intelligently tell you exactly where the risks are, what is the extent of that risk, and how to cater to that risk, right? Thereby saving lives, and as a result, saving a lot of troubles as well for the organization, as well as a lot of profit, efficiency, and so on. So that's the product. To now come back to your question on our scale-up journey with Shell, we were actually the first startup in the Shell E4 program that came in. We're from the first batch, right? So we started as a company that just had a few contracts with BPCL, Reliance, Vedanta, and a few other folks. But if you notice the trend, no international organization. We started with the E4 journey, and I'll be sharing some more of that as well. But we started with one site, right? And this site was our first adopter, and it was with the help of the E4 program that we got access to them. So this was Pennsylvania Chemicals, which was the first site we worked with, where safety was a big driving factor, right? On how do we keep track of falling objects? How do we ensure that we have a system that can predict or identify all the risks at play? And we, as Direct said, we have an AI algorithm. It works in India. We have no clue if it's going to work in the US. We don't know if the AI or ML was translatable, but worth a shot, right? We did a small little demo to start with, but eventually, over the span of a 30-40 day deployment, we were able to identify almost 3x the amount of risk they were detecting before, thereby showing them that you're actually missing a lot that you don't know about. And that ended up being our first champion site, right? To tell you an example of what scale-up looks like, today, the technology is being used in Singapore, in Bukom, Jurong facilities, and Shell. It's being used in India and Taloja. It's being used, of course, Penchem is one of our existing clients. It's being used in Port Allen in the US. And we have conversations ongoing with close to about 20 Shell sites in parallel at the moment, with visibility across your group, which is why we're here, as well as the CXOs and as well as safety officers all over the world within the Shell ecosystem, right? So that is sort of a glimpse of what scale-up looks like within Shell for us.
Fantastic. It's actually very interesting. For those of you that don't understand the scale of Shell or don't really grasp with what size we bring in, I was actually chatting with a colleague a little earlier who said, we're actually about 8 to 10 different industries in one organization, because that's the size and scale that we actually come up with. And it's interesting to see how many use cases you can actually find for some of the technologies that we see out there. But anyway, with that, we'll probably go into a little bit on the E4 journey that you've actually been through, right? So
sure.
Maybe we'll start from there. Tell us a little bit about how did you hear about E4? What was your experience starting off? And then talk us through a little bit on your first few months with E4.
Sure. So how we heard about E4, E4 didn't exist when we were there. So I remember I was in a TIE conference. I don't know how many of you have been to TIE conferences. We were a seed fund or pre-seed funded startup at that time. And in the TIE conference, we did a small pitch of the sensor that we were working with, right? And there was one person from Shell. She came in and said, I want you to do a demo of this in the STCB. So why don't you have a booth? Like, I think we saw a few startup booths over there, right? So why don't you have a booth? The Shell ecosystem is going to see you. So he said, sure, why not? So we had a booth over here at the STCB, and we had the people who were setting up E4 from STCB come in and visit. And they said, guys, you have to be a part of E4, but we have a very stringent process. So we said, sure, let's see what the process is. And I remember we were put in a room in your 4th floor or 5th floor where there were only 5 people. So we thought, okay, this is going to be a decent pitch. Then there were 20 people from Europe, from US, from everywhere else, all online. And we had to do a very detailed pitch. We were cross-questioned for like 45 minutes at least by then, after the 1-hour pitch that we had. But finally we heard later that we were selected in. But E4 has been amazing. So when we entered, I think there's one story I'd like to share. There was a person that actually helped us in our startup pitches, right? And it's an analogy to our journey in Shell as well, because he came and told me, Daniel, listen, man, we're going to have a demo day. You're going to have 3 minutes, and I'm sure you pitched to investors before, but all that's not going to pan out here. We actually took the terrace or the last floor, and we had a full audience, and he's like, people are not going to pay attention to your slides, right? You have to pack as much content as possible in the most efficient way in 3 minutes, right? So we're going to do this drill at least 40 times, right? And I said, I can change the slides if you want. He's like, Daniel, I don't care about your slides, right? We need to build that process right now on your pitch. And we went through the drill. So we went through the drill at least 5 or 6 times. I think we stayed here for a night once in one of your guest rooms. And he said there are going to be at least 60, 70 investors coming in, including the Shell Ventures team, right, that time. And this was before our Series A of funding that we got. So what happened, I came on stage similar to the startups over here, and he said, no matter what, don't look behind because you're not engaging with the audience, right? So there's going to be a screen in front of you, look at that. I keep looking there and suddenly the screen goes off, right? So then I asked for Siddharth, who's part of Shell Ventures, I believe. I told him, can we get the screen back? And my time was running out. So he gets it back, screen goes off again, right? But your guy who trained us for the pitch tortured me so much that I actually knew my deck end to end by heart. So I said, screw it, I just used the pointer and did the complete pitch without looking at my slides. Why this is a parallel to Shell or our journey in Shell is working with Shell is not a sprint, right? Both the talks before us are people that have engaged with Shell for a long period of time and have scaled over time, right? It is a marathon. You need to build as much of a process as possible to have people in different parts of the world engage with different business units. You were talking about 8 business units within one facility, right? You have to engage with multiple business units and ensure that the corporate knows about everything and digital teams know about everything at scale, right? At some point, your screen is going to switch off, right? Someone is going to come and say, hey, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today. I don't think this is going to work. How have you built your process to account for that? And how are you going to maneuver through that is completely up to how you built your startup and your ecosystem. So that's something, since we're on E4 Demo Day, I thought it would be an interesting anecdote to share.
Fascinating. It's actually very interesting. I want to pick on a couple of things. For those of you that are from the startup world, I want you to actually internalize one word that you heard, process. Shell is a lot about process, as are most large organizations, right? And there's a reason for that, because when you're a large organization with greater than 50,000 people in your roles, you want to make sure that things work well. I mean, there's a place for innovation and disruption, but there's a place where run and maintain has to go well. And you'll have to understand that Shell has a large business to actually contend with, as with any other large corporation. And it's absolutely crucial that you understand how an organization like ours works. And it's important from a couple of perspectives. One is, how do you try and find that right use case where you actually can get that breakthrough, but also how do you make the best of that opportunity when you do land on it? Fascinating story. We talked a lot about E4 and how you've actually graduated through it, but tell us a little about working with some of the sites in Shell. Tell us about the good, but we'll definitely come to some of the bad as well. Start with the good, maybe.
No, I think some of our best experiences with Shell actually was working with the sites. Because the tough part is getting in the site, right? Getting the right in our case, you need digital and safety stakeholders in place, right? So the tough part is getting the buy-in or getting both people in the room, right? But the moment we had that, we had a MVP or pre-MVP product, right? When we started the PenCam, we worked incredibly closely with the Pennsylvania Chemicals team and trained the models as well as ensured that the product, the UI, the interface all made sense as per Shell standards. Now, the question we always had was, when we built for Shell, are we building for scale? Because that was not the case in India. Like in India, we built with a lot of companies, but we always figured out that we had to customize something to take it at scale, right? And also, when we were working in the US, it didn't matter what logos we worked with over here as well, right? So when we worked with Shell and built out this whole model, if you look at the transformation from when we started in 2020 till today, the baseline is everything we built with PenChem. It just got slightly changed. And then the next thought process was, okay, this is a Western Hemisphere site. What if you take that same technology, why don't you try it in Jurong, right? Or Bukom in Singapore? Is it going to fit? The answer was it fit, right? It fit all the standards. It fit all the requirements of Shell and the process. Then the question was, okay, this is working within Shell, can we take this to replication? But is that useful for other players, Exxons of the world, the BPs of the world? The answer to that as well was yes, right? So our learnings and solutioning from working together with Shell actually formed a lot of the basis for scale, not just within Shell, but for us as an organization globally, right? And that's why we are the best at what we do.
Fantastic. That's another key element I think that's very interesting. An organization like Shell, especially Shell, actually has processes that are acknowledged as global standards, right? And then when you start looking at working with those, and then you heard a bit of that commentary from Paul Van Decker at Databricks as well. When you are a startup and you're working with an organization like Shell, it's worthwhile to actually co-build and co-innovate on the products with the organization that you're working with, because it actually shapes it based on the perspectives of the consumer, the customer, right? And then it gives you the access to replicating it at multiple slides, where the replication starts to become a little easy. But it's not always the case, and we're going to try and understand from Dan's perspective on some of the challenges that he's had working with Shell as well.
Oh, you want me to talk about challenges?
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. So with respect to challenges, I would say, especially for the startups out here that are looking to work with Shell, right? It's a relatively slower process. And I saw a few of the startups, I saw a lot of Indian logos there that we work quite closely with. I would say the large difference is in the logos that we work with locally, right? You go to a top man, a director of refineries, right? Or I don't know, a CDO of the organization. You for sure are going to have a budget to really deploy, and the scale up is pretty fast, right? With Shell, it isn't a one-man decision. It is going to be multiple teams. It is more of a democracy, and there, as a result, are more processes involved. The reason we invest time, or any of the companies that you saw before us invest time, is just the scale of the market is insane, and the replication capability is larger than any other player that we can work with locally. And that's the reason we spend that amount of time, right? So I would say the largest difficulty is understanding the bureaucracy first, to a point where I was in a meeting recently with Jay Crofts, who for context is the CIO of Shell, right?
Yep.
And when I was in the room, I actually started talking about things like Bucket 2, which was Shell terminology, and he came out and said, how do you know about our internal terminology, right? So it takes, for a startup founder, promoter, and your head of business to be so involved with the organization that you become really a part of the organization with respect to what you understand. And that takes time, it takes exposure, and it takes champions. It took us a while to find our champions. Our first champion, I will actually call him out, his name is Digvijay. He was part of the E4 program. And without that champion, we would probably have a different story, right, over here. We created champions from there all across the ecosystem. And that is something that we have to actively invest in, because one champion is not enough in this organization, right? And that's why they are where they are. That's why Shell is as big as it is as well. And that's something that we as startup founders have to maneuver through and get used to. But that is, to me, the only demerit, because with respect to, I would say, the commercials, with respect to scalability, replication, there has been no better experience for us, right? So that's the benefit of powering through.
Awesome. I think that's all we have time for. I'll just probably close it out with a couple of comments. One of the things I would say is, look, we do acknowledge that Shell can be a little bit of a challenging organization to navigate, and we fully understand that. But the power of actually coming via the E4 ecosystem is that the E4 team does a fantastic job of making sure that you get to the right place within the organization to land your products in the hands of the right people that can make the decisions. So continue working with the organization. They will open the doors for the organization. They will make sure that you are put in front of the right people. But then it's actually an opportunity for you to grasp as well. Find your champions. I think there was a fantastic way in which to reflect on it. Shell is complex, but we will try and demystify it as much as we can. But we'll look forward to hearing more of your pitches and wishing you all the best to actually go through the journey. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Hari. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Neil and Hari. And to continue with our next second E4 startup, I would like to introduce you to KNP Arises. What if someone buys your used cooking oil to make biodiesel? Well, KNP Arises is here to become the #1 biodiesel supplier. We all know that the consumption of used cooking oil possesses the adverse health effects. Therefore, it is essential to monitor the quality of vegetable oil during frying. Let's welcome Sushil and Kriti, co-founders of
I hope everyone enjoyed the sessions till now. I'm Sushil Vaishnav.
And I'm Kirti Vaishnav, co-founder of KNP Arises Green Energy Private Limited. We are here to provide farm-to-fuel supply chain management for agri-waste for meeting global requirement of green fuel.
Thank you, Kirti. So, we had a lot of AI, a lot of technology. Let's talk about bad food. Not a good food, okay? We'll talk about the bad food. All right? I just wanted to wake up everyone. I want to ask one question. Can anyone give me some guess how many times we should fry oil? Like if you are doing the frying at home, how many times you can fry the things? If you're 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, 10 times?
You can raise the hand with like this, yeah.
1 time, 1 time, 1 time. Great. So they all are our great customers, actually. So probably we'll connect later. Fine. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. So this is the awareness gap which we have. We are probably the most elite class of the people, those are sitting here, most educated, because we are associated with the brands like Shell, right? So that's the problem. And that's what we are trying to solve. If you see, in India, 2.2 million tons of the oil every year is discarded. And out of this, 60% of this oil is going back into the food chain. How? This oil is being bought, like big hotel, restaurant industry, they buy this oil. Once after the use, this is being sold to the scrap vendors. And these scrap vendors sell it to the small street food vendors. And that's where you all go, my kids goes, your families go, and we all eat there, right? And you must have heard that recently in India, how many heart attack cases we had. Heart attack, cancer, Alzheimer, these are one of the key reasons of such used oil. Because their input quality itself so bad, and we go and consume over them, they don't have any criteria until what time they must use it. We are trying to protect the health of the millions of the people living in India by collecting this oil. That's the first problem. Second, even though there are people, those who are aware, they just throw into drains. They just throw it. A single liter of oil can actually pollute 20,000 liters of water. So it's creating a lot of water pollution. If you see, even if you throw into drains, it increases the load on the effluent treatment plants. So there are a lot of problems, right? The solution which we are bringing, converting of this oil into the sustainable aviation fuel. If you see, aviation industry is contributing around 2% of the global emissions, over the 2%. And they don't have much options like batteries and hydrogen. Probably the green SAF is the only option which is available, and that is the reason that's the highest demand we have. There is a huge demand. The problem which we are solving is the supply of the raw material. They don't have a right raw material for production of the SAF. And that's what we are doing. Can somebody help me? Go to the second slide. Second slide. Yes. So this is our business model. We collect the used cooking oil, and our model has 4 major pillars: marketplace, storage, smart collection, and the pre-treatment. So under the marketplace, if anybody has oil, they can download our application, place a request, and then our team will collect. Also, you can get the price discovery of your raw material which you are having. Then the smart collection, the supply chain which you are building, the solution which you are building. So you will get end-to-end visibility of entire process. And that is the most important part once you are creating any sustainable solution. So we give 100% transparency of the entire process. Under storage, whatever oil is coming from everywhere, we keep the control samples and give the feedback to our food business operators. Why food business operators are associated with us? Because we are giving end-to-end visibility. Under the pre-treatment, this heterogeneous raw material which is coming from everywhere, small restaurant, cafeteria, industries, is converted into the homogeneous production of the raw material, which is, we standardize all the chemical criteria for production of the biodiesel. So why a food business operator should associate with us? Because first, they are being paid for the oil. We don't buy it, we pay for it. We are giving a central control systems, and the most important, in this entire journey, we are generating the CO2 emission reduction, right? So this carbon credit, we are also going to pass it to the food business operator. They can see in their mobile application, and they can monetize it also. It will help us in the engagement, and probably this is the reason. These some of the big brands, they are already working with us. Before we go to our goal, till now, we have collected about 30 million liters of the oil. We have got 5 warehouses. We are collecting from 60 plus cities. We have a team of over 40 people, and their safety, their health, and their family well-being is the key criteria for our team. Thank you.
Our goal is to capture 25% of market size available for UCO in India. For that, by 2025, we are going to achieve $8 million of revenue, and we will collect 8.8 million liter used cooking oil. This oil will further be used to generate green fuel, which will reduce 8.3 million kg carbon emission, which is equivalent to CO2 absorbed by 8.3 million trees. So yeah, we are also contributing in these 4 SDG goals, which is, yeah.
So to achieve our target of 8 million, and which we are very sure in the next 2.5 years we are going to achieve it, we are raising $400,000, and we have 3 major priorities: highest value for our food business operator from the disposed oil. Engaging, we are already working over 2,500 plus food business operators across India. We want to create more solutions for them. And then quick service, quick delivery. Within the 2 hours of the placing the request, we'll collect the oil. So to solve this complex problem, we are having highly experienced team. Kirti, she has worked over 10 years. She is working as the CMO and CTO of the company. She has worked in the project development. She has worked into the tech development, and she has already managed the large supply chain of the food business operators. I'm working as the CEO of the company. I worked over 15 years, and supply chain and the business development is my core strength. In total, if you see, we have 50 plus years of the core experience in the sales and marketing, digital marketing, licensing, and the tech development. And remember, there is timing for every investment to get the best ROI of your investment. And we are in the most sweet spot in this sector to take the leadership. So we are looking for the hands to join us and save the health and the environment of our families. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Amazing pitches, amazing startups. Let's now continue with our next startup called Grassroot. Their plant avoid emission of tons of methane per year, which is 25% more than potent than CO2 in global warming. But let's hear more from Mateen Abdul, CEO and co-founder of Grassroot. Over to you.
Climate change is one of the pressing challenges of our time. Clean fuels can play an important role as a part of the energy transition. However, access to clean fuels is a big limitation. While we have significant amount of organic or agricultural waste which can be processed into clean fuels near the place of consumption, it is in this context Grassroots Energy was set up. We have been accelerated some of the best places. Our solutions have been categorized as energy efficient solutions in its category, and the entire carbon footprint was detailed out by Mission Innovation. Access to gas grids is a big limitation, and we don't have it everywhere. That's where we produce, process, design, engineer, and install biomethane plants closer to the point of consumption. The applications of this solution could be for electricity generation, thermal applications, or even for automotive fuel. Case in point, at this point of time, we are working with one of the leading utilities where they currently have solar and diesel installation. We are helping them to make a transition to a solar biomethane so that they can produce 100% clean fuel solutions to serve the communities. We can also process biohydrogen using our biophasic solution, wherein we can produce 5 to 100% hydrogen depending on the end usage. It could be blended either with biomethane or could be offered as a standalone solution. We also offer carbon capture technology. When it is combined with the clean fuels, we can produce carbon negative clean fuels. In addition, we can offer the solution as a standalone solution as well. In all three technologies, the residue from the processes is processed into organic fertilizers, which can go back into the soil as carbon, and it can be sequestrated for decades. So it's a huge market which we are addressing, of which we are working with two segments. One is mini grids and second is on the industrials. On the industrials, we have been in discussions with significant amount of people, primarily who are looking at net zero targets which they have set up. To reduce the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, we are helping some of these companies to make a transition from the existing fossil fuels as a part of the production processes to a clean fuel solution. In this context, we are looking at multiple business models, which we'll talk about in a bit. At this point of time, we have a traction where we are mandated to set up multiple decentralized plants over the next few years with some of our partners. In this context, we have a revenue visibility which helps us to plan on the next steps. So on the business model, we business own and operate, which is the first model in which the assets are owned by us, and we have a long-term agreements with these corporates giving a revenue visibility for a longer duration of 10 years and above. Second is the technology licensing with an option to operate these plants. So some of the key advantages with our approach is modular systems which can be scaled up as required, multi-feedstocks, so which can be flexible depending on what is available in the local context, energy efficient, it's protected by IP. With all this put together, we achieve the end goal of a low-cost clean fuel solutions which can be consumed in the local area. Backed by some of the agreements and the traction, we're looking at a seed round of 4 million, which will be used for product development and also deploying these assets on the ground. We have an accomplished and outstanding team with significant amount of experience in multiple markets and scaling up of the businesses in the distributed energy space. So we're happy to engage and partner with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mateen. Hope you all are ready for the next introduction as much as I am. E4 about connecting and bringing together the most innovative energy startups, industry leaders and partners. And that's why this panel discussion will no be exception. Ocean Katulkar, commercial nature-based solution Shell, will be facilitating the panel discussion where Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Managing Director of TERI, Anup Podar, President of EVPE, Prashant Rao, Director of MathWork, Manoj Kumar, Founder of Social Alpha, and Dirk Smith, VP Research Strategy and Chief Scientist at Shell, will engage in the topic of accelerating energy transition. Feel free to share your thoughts and questions in the box next to the video player.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us today. My name is Ocean Katulkar, and I look after investment opportunities for nature-based solutions business for Shell in India, and will be moderating this session. We have our esteemed panelists with us today to talk about their views on accelerating energy transition. And introducing them in line, we have Dr. Vibha Dhawan. She is a Director General at the Energy Research Institute, TERI, and is actively involved in research and policy development at both national and international levels. We have Mr. Manoj Kumar, who is the founder of Social Alpha, a multi-stage innovation curation and venture development platform aimed to address most critical social, economic, and environmental challenges. We have Mr. Anup Podar with us today, who is the president at EV Private Equity, managing firms' investment activities in North America. He is passionate about investing in and managing technology-rich companies and contributing towards climate change. We have Mr. Prashant Rao, who leads MathWork India application engineering. He has more than 20 years of experience in this area and will share his insights on energy transition, specifically from a perspective of digitalization and how it could enable and accelerate the transition. Last but not the least, we have Dr. Dirk Smith, who is currently VP of Research Strategy at Shell, Chairman of Shell Science Council, and also the Chief Scientist. He also holds several positions outside the organization, and we look forward to hearing his views as well on this subject. So let's start with you, Anup. What are your views on energy transition, and do you think we are on track? And what are some of the key defining blocks that you would say are important when it comes to energy transition?
Ocean, thank you. First of all, very nice to meet my esteemed panelists here. And one good piece of information, I am moving to India to join a climate fund and moving to Mumbai in 2 weeks' time. So super excited about that, and hope to see all of you in Mumbai. Regarding the net zero progress itself, I think we are running behind. There is no question about that. The recent events in the world, the focus on energy security, energy affordability, and the interest rates, all of that has combined and is combining towards delaying the transition, which is unfortunate. There is a strong willpower to get there, but I think we are running behind, and it's recognized by many. I think the building blocks question, and I'll leave that to panel to discuss, but building block question is very, very simple answer. We need to get normality back in the world. Whatever it takes, the normality has to come back. The fear about energy security and affordability needs to go away. Then people can focus on normal business, and that is super important. But then second part is when the normality does return, we are building an asset class. This is once in 100-year story. We are building a brand new asset class with very undefined rules and policies all around. So for an asset class to build up, you need many things. You need a strong and clear policy support that has to be there. So people have to believe that those policies would stay in place for longer term. You need technical improvements, of course, to drive down prices and make the solution affordable. you need entrepreneurial willpower. Every asset class has got unique entrepreneurs who come in and drive change and new ideas. And last but not the least, you need affordable capital. Interest rates don't help just now, but you need affordable capital. India is talking about 500 gigawatt of renewable power gen, which means $500 billion of investment roughly just in the power gen. So you need that capital to come in, and I'm not even talking about e-mobility right now or industrial decarbonization. So the numbers will just add up just for India. Talking about Asia would be even bigger numbers. So all of that needs to come together. I do think there's a lot happening. I do not want to come across as a doomsday preacher here. I think all is happening. Very positive about the chances of India taking a strong step forward here, but I think more needs to be done. Startups are super important for this to happen. The four components I talked about, one big is technology improvement, and that won't happen in incumbents. You need startups and new idea thinkers to drive those innovations. So let me pause here and leave that the discussion to panel.
Thanks a lot, Anup. Manoj, maybe coming next to you and also asking you to build further on what Anup said. So I read it that you have successfully kind of moved 200 plus startups as a part of Social Alpha. And I want to understand what are your views in terms of when it comes to startups, how can they help in accelerating energy transition, and maybe specifically pick up on affordable capital that Anup mentioned. Do you see that affordable capital is available to these startups to be able to bring in the right technologies, bring in the right, I think, mindset as well to be able to scale up further?
Thank you, Ocean. Thanks for inviting me for this panel, and really delighted to be in this wonderful group. And Anup, welcome to India. And your last statement has already made my day, my evening. This is great because we need to build the whole ecosystem. Thank you. See, energy transition. The role of startups in energy transition is really important because incumbents don't even have money for R&D, and they're spending more money in CSR on climate and energy than they're spending from their R&D budgets in India. At least I can see this. So effectively, capital is required, but see the beauty and the dilemma both in this is the capital is only available once these startups are de-risked, and the de-risking has happened to the extent that mainstream investors get excited about it or corporations get excited about it, right? And that's the space where we operate, because a lot of innovation that is happening in energy transition and in the wider space of climate technology is still at the lab stage, and it requires testing, pilots, validation, and multiple iterations before you actually can go to your first round of investors and demonstrate a product market fit for them and establish the market, right? And that's where the capital, you know doesn't exist. You will be surprised to know that entire portfolio we have built with the philanthropic capital and not from the commercial capital, right? And we did it in a not-for-profit environment because we could not access capital here. This is not only about grants or equity. The debt is even in a very bad shape, right? So even if I have a startup that has just started selling the solution and starts to experience revenue, the problem of inventory and receivable kicks in. And at that point of time, the situation is not different from the typical MSME sector. So I think when you talk about energy transition, and if you ask me what's the biggest obstacle here, the biggest obstacle is one, the right mix of early stage capital, which could be non-dilutive, dilutive, as well as debt, combined with the right infrastructure. For example, if you look at incubators and accelerators in our country, they have actually just copied the Silicon Valley playbook. The investors also have copied the Silicon Valley playbook. So we have incubators and accelerators that can help you build a digital app,
but we had like when we started, we had no incubator for say clean energy transition products and testing. So we had to build our own microgrid, our own battery testing facility, and our own partnership with players like utilities and government department, just to make sure that we have a testing sandbox for these startups, right? So access to infrastructure, access to capital, and then access to larger ecosystem, integrating with people like Anup and integrating with people like Vibha on the policy front. Is extremely important that you orchestrate the entire ecosystem, because the mortality could be very high, and the incumbents are not going to include the startup innovations in their production anytime soon, right? So I think creating an ecosystem that brings existing players in private sector, public sector, the venture capital, private equity, people who are trying to build a new asset class in climate tech, and also the academia where the basic research and translation research is happening. Bringing all of them together is the new way of accelerating transition.
Thank you so much, Manoj. I think you very well pointed out the need for creating that ecosystem, and you also mentioned integrating at both ends. You mentioned Anoop's end and also Vibha's end. So I'll move to Vibha, and Vibha, I'll ask you to share your views on specifically research and policy development front. What is it that you are seeing on energy transition? What is it that companies and also countries, emerging nations like India, should be doing more and more to be able to support and create this ecosystem that Manoj just spoke about?
Yeah, the ecosystem, what we are talking about, see, first of all, you need to get signals from the government. And the very fact that the Panch Amrit, the Prime Minister announced at Glasgow, is that country has to move towards net zero. And therefore, what we are telling to the signal which is being given to the industry is that today what they are doing on voluntary basis may become mandatory in years to come. So there is that the policy or the government is going to assist them, and also government perhaps is going to penalize them if they won't move in that direction of net zero. So that's a very important signal, which also gives confidence to those who are investing in renewable energy, because there is going to be market and one is moving towards energy transition. We also talk about, very rightly mentioned about the finance side of it by Manoj, that we really don't have, like people have will, and especially when we talk of small and medium enterprises in the country, they want to move towards cleaner technology, but do we have the right set of technologies to give them? I'm afraid we don't have. So they have to be important partners in energy transition, and somewhere it is responsibility of each one of us, including government, that those technologies are fine-tuned, because there is no model where you can plug and play. Even if you get the clean technology to the country, it has to be fine-tuned to our requirements. And that is where incubators and technology validation by some of the players, or maybe even IITs, institutes like TERI. So we should work towards which technology is going to work for which kind of industry. So that is required. And we perhaps somewhere, while we talk about the finance, the part of it, more than finance, we also require technology and validation of technology and fine-tuning, finally dissemination, including human resource requirement, which is required if we want to go adopt new technologies. Happily, or maybe I'll say it's a challenge, it's also an opportunity, that in India we have very little of fossil fuel, and therefore there is no other way of development than to go for cleaner technologies. And startup ecosystem, I'll say it also is giving a lot of opportunities to the startups. Like if you look at EV, so many startups have come up in the country. So those startups, again, they are investing their energies, their ideas, their innovations into cleaner ways, which is very important and fortunate for the country. So as policy, I'll say, yes, there is policy incentive from the government. We need to invest more in terms of incubation centers, in terms of getting technologies, validating technologies, creating human resource, and passing it on to or ensuring that it is given to small and medium enterprises as well. So that's all what I like to say at the moment.
Thanks a lot, Vibha, for that. Dirk, I'll come to you and request you to maybe share some of your views around further building up on Vibha's insights. So, Vibha, talk about creating this right platform to be able to test technologies. You come from a multinational organization and have been working towards creating the research strategy for it. How do you think big multinational players like Shell can also play a very important role in helping these testing of these technologies, demonstration, and also ultimately commercial deployment of these technologies?
Yes, Sachin, thank you very much for setting me up in this way. Thanks as well for having me on this panel. I think that the role that big companies or like Shell, in particular in the energy sector, can play is to both orchestrate and focus on that part that is extremely hard to get from a technology solution, and that is a scaled up application that would be commensurable with the problem that we're trying to solve, which is a systemic problem. It's actually a global problem, but it is certainly not something that you can just do with a few technologies. You need to develop a system, or for that matter, we need to change current systems with net zero technologies or net zero emission technologies. And there are multiple ways to do that. And the role that a company like Shell can play is to facilitate how you can accelerate pilots and trials that in a particular environment, a local environment, and I could mean local could be a state in India, or for that matter, several states in India. But there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. Something that works in California might be completely ridiculous to try to in India and vice versa. So there is a large degree of a regional, local overprint in what solutions might work. And these solutions you will be able to find by actually trying things out. It's a fallacy to think that this is just a bunch of a few technologies that we will then sort of scale up in a linear way. That's not going to work. No energy transition in the past that has been to a certain degree successful has ever even evolved like that. It is always through things that people have tried. And some of the panelists already alluded to that, that you will need capital for that. That capital is there. It is what is lacking is a degree of collaboration and trust in the different parties that we actually steer towards a common goal that preserves, say, interests that are both shared as well as different and being different amongst a few players. The government has a different objective, say, than perhaps a big company that is there to actually, say, make a living out of selling energy solutions. And academia might actually have a role in actually providing technologies and abilities to develop new ideas that a company is hard to do so because it's more occupied with actually scaling things up in a commercial environment. That's its prime focus. So what I try to advocate first and foremost is that there is a degree of common ground created through which you can really start to work collaboratively with government officials to setting policies, with other companies, not just say one, that could create ecosystems or environments where startups could be sort of feel a little safer than perhaps without, say, such an umbrella of large companies that could create conditions to work on specific challenges on their campuses, for example, by making technology campuses in big corporations open, or at least more open. And also to essentially have a line of sight of what would this mean commercially for all the people involved. So these commercial models or economic models are absolutely key to things scale up. That doesn't fall out of the sky or comes only at the end. Now, if you ask me what are then the typical systems things that in my view are lacking, one is that in my view, we underestimate the role of high density or high energy density chemical carriers as opposed to electrons, not everything will be electrified on a time frame to Paris, in particular not the heavy emitters. And I may say that in more developing economies, those heavy emitters are in industries that provide also a means to actually create more wealth to a lot of people who currently live in poverty, like steel industries, cement industries, ammonia, and that's to a degree also in other parts of chemical industries. So it's actually vital to be able to decarbonize those industries, probably more so than in societies that are already much further developed. In doing so, we need research around how to actually create hydrogen, ammonia systems for steel and cement making that might eventually become electrochemical based or electrical based, because ultimately a lot more needs to become electrified. But the energy carriers of the future will be, to a very large extent for industries, be chemical, because you can transport chemicals far easier than electrons, and you can also store chemical energy a lot easier and a lot more for a lot more lower cost. I don't think we have really understood yet of what the chemical carriers will be of the future, other than by name that we know roughly what they are, how to produce those affordably at scale and in a way that actually has a degree of predictability to deliver that energy. And one thing that will be absolutely crucial are pilot plans to do so. And in my view, those pilot plans should be completely digital, in the sense that they are actually driven by data. The tuning of these plans in future will be much more driven by digital technologies rather than by the classical or conventional engineer like I might be, or some of my colleagues in Shell would be, that no doubt represent a significant amount of experience and knowledge of how to do this currently. But in future, those processes are far faster and are far more effectively scaled up by using digital technology. The lack of digital engineering in chemical engineering applications of the future, in my view, is an area where I think collectively both government as well as academia should have more of an eye for, in particular in building pilot plans to actually start doing this. Digital twins of complicated chemical reactors will be key for success to develop. And if I may say, the last bit, I would really come back to this degree of collaboration. Big companies like Shell should invest in education and in science promoting for energy solutions in practical communities. I'm under no illusion. I'm not sure what the age of my fellow panelists are, but I'm certainly of the age that I won't probably see the real net zero emission everywhere being realized. And hence, my view is that we should invest far more on in the next generation through education of how do you really think about energy in a net zero emission system? What would that do to you, other than something that it implies a big change from the current system? But also from the point of view, what opportunities will be unlocked? And because I'm sure that those opportunities are by far more attractive to work on in future than the current system would ever allow you to be. So the future is bright, but I think the current generation that turns the knob, say, at government, big companies, as well as perhaps in academia, should also be aware that a lot of this delivery should go through the next generation. And hence, there is an imperative, in my view, to really start to think more systematically, what kind of education do we really need to make sure that people can think more systems-based and can also therefore come up with more systems solutions to allow for faster scale-up. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks a lot, Dirk. I'm also conscious of time, Prashant, so I'll move to you and pick on a couple of things that Dirk mentioned here, which was really about decarbonization of hard-to-abate sectors and also how digital technologies can play a pivotal role. And you come from an industry that has a potential to provide tools to be able to really become a backbone for this digital engineering and digital technologies to come in and play a role in this space. So what are your views on how this industry can help in this whole space and accelerating and potentially achieving net zero sooner rather than later?
Yeah, thank you, Oshin. I couldn't have asked for a better layup, but firstly, I'd also say, I'm really honored and humbled to be part of this panel. And thank you, Viva. Thank you, Dirk, Manoj, Anup. But just building on what Viva mentioned and also what Dirk is saying, seeing what from our perspective. So we make tools that engineers and scientists use in their day-to-day work. And we believe that, climate crisis is here. I mean, that's there. But we can't leave climate crisis or handling of climate crisis to climate scientists themselves alone. Every industry needs to transform and transition. And in that, we look at engineers and scientists across all industries to be able to understand and also to be able to work so that we can reduce the emissions that we're generating at this point in time. So we see three key areas. One is on the research side, and taking also from what Dirk just mentioned, we're looking at accelerating climate science by enabling scientists to have the right tools, but also enabling them to collaborate and facilitate the collaboration. It could be as simple as images of satellite images that are stored in the cloud, for example. These images can be then distributed, disseminated across multiple, globally to anybody who needs access to these. These images potentially have large amounts of data. So how do we speed up? How do we accelerate the processing of the data in these images? So we're looking at ways in which we can enable scientists to be able to get these images, to also be able to process these in the best possible manner. The other part of this is when you talk about digitization or also AI, is with the increasing usage of data and the increasing accessibility to data, we can uncover patterns in data sets that we were not able to do before. And using this knowledge, we can then develop robust models that help us predict crises or things that are going to happen in a much better way. It could be something like drought prediction, just by analyzing rainfall patterns in ways that we've not been able to do in the past. So applying AI techniques in the right manner and enabling scientists to understand and use these AI techniques is something that we're looking at. Then moving from research to industry, this is where engineers in industry can impact and implement the change. Of course, Dirk mentions there are multiple different technologies in there, but I'll focus on electrification. Electrifying everything is one thing that we do believe that will reduce greenhouse emissions considerably. But significant innovation is required in this field. We do need to be able to generate electricity from renewable sources and use that electricity as probably a primary energy source. And this is where engineers and scientists need to work together. It could, on this part, the usage of AI again comes into play. If you have wind farms, for example, how can you set up an effective predictive maintenance schedule to really implement efficient operation of that wind farm and ensure that maintenance is done at the right time and not in a wasteful manner? That is also part of this reduction of waste and reduction of greenhouse gases as such. Or being able to model and simulate various different configurations, whether it be for production or for actual systems that we're putting on on our roads or that are flying in the air. We talk about EVs, we talk about more electric aircraft, or also in actual industrial systems. So there we look at how can we get engineers get started, probably through individual component examples, reference examples for a subsystem, or also an entire design solution, an end-to-end design solution, which has an adjustable model that engineers could use to understand and also to then implement for their specific problem statement. But in all of this, being able to take in local environmental conditions, local challenges is really important. One size does not fit all in this. And being able to run simulations, create models that then are specific to a certain condition is really important. The third part of this is the education part. We need to work and we are partnering with multiple companies here on this front, work on exposing students to real world problem statements, being able to take them from academia into research or as well as into industry. So give them the right curriculum set. We talked about, how do you enable, let's say, somebody in the chemical industry to be able to understand digitization or to understand AI. So make AI more accessible. So machine learning, deep learning techniques more accessible to domain experts here. Traditional techniques that they've been using, they need to be able to also augment those with data-driven techniques as well. Those are three parts of that. The final part, just to touch upon very briefly, is the financing of all of this. We look at solutions that will enable investors to be able to quantize the risks that they are in their investments. So quantify the climate risk or quantify the risk of change that they need to go through NLP, for example, to go through ESG documents in ESG scoring and investing, or also quantize things like actual physical risks that are involved. So that's where I'd leave it at here on this part. So 3 parts around academia, research, and industry, and the 4th around actual quantization of the risks. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Prashant. And I do believe that through this whole discussion, we have discussed a lot of enablers and also a lot of blockers. And some of the enablers are also blockers where we are not, for example, able to get enough capital and even enough support to be able to scale up technologies, which is required. So just to close off, I would request panelists to suggest and advise our early stage founders and entrepreneurs here who will be listening to this call in terms of what is it that they should not do when it comes to looking at startups, setting up a business, and maybe just give your advice in less than 2 lines. So that's a difficult task, but maybe I'll go around the table. Anup, starting with you.
Well, I think we should start doing things. Revolution always creates value, but also we should not lose focus on the fact that evolution of existing systems, making them better, is so important and less risky. There is a market for them. So India needs to, and the startup entrepreneurs in India need to focus on getting things done, start making small motors which fit in existing systems today. And then through the manufacturing, innovation will come, and then we'll become a better motor provider, a global powerhouse. But let's not start from the moonshot. Let's just start doing things together. And that would be my advice. Less risky, existing market, go after what's already there, and then innovate.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Anup. Vibha, and your I think target is to be more crisper than Anup.
I'll say partnership, first of all, and don't reinvent the wheel. Rather start from, or rather indigenize the technology, what exists, and ensure it meets the requirements of larger sector of the society.
Great. Thanks, Vibha. Prashant?
To add on to that, I would say focus on the core of what you're doing and don't try to do it all. Look for partnerships, build on others, but really focus on your own core. What is the clear differentiator that you're bringing to the table?
Great point. Dirk?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Don't get too gloomy by all the negativity that you see around. There's only one big driver to get out of bed, and that is that the day starts bright and that you can make a difference. And I think you all can make a difference. So if anything stands in the way, then reach out and seek for help. Don't try to solve it all by yourself, but have fun. That's the best agent that I know, at least, will indeed ensure success to come.
Don't be gloomy and have fun. That's great. Manoj?
just focus on what problem you are trying to solve, and if you solve the problem, who is going to pay you for that? Because if you don't establish that very early, there is no money waiting for you, with large capital pools to invest in you. So make sure that you are solving real problem and don't ignore MSMEs and farmers, because in energy transition there is not only a large opportunity but also a completely different market that is not on the radar of large corporations. Energy transition is also a problem of small and marginal farmers and vulnerable communities who are the biggest victim of the climate change. So don't forget that, and that could end up creating new market that traditionally we have not even thought about.
No, that's I think a very important point that you bring in, Manoj. Think about energy transition while moving hand in hand and in step with how the society is moving and how they want things to be done. Looking at it in a very equitable way across all segments of the society. Um, so in the end, I would just like to pass on my thanks to all the panelists for sharing your views and insights. Also to the E4 team to in terms of making this happen, and also to all the audience who will be listening in to this recording later on. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for all the speakers for such an engaging discussion around the key insights of accelerating the energy transition globally. It's now time to jump into the next Shell E4 alumni startup who will be sharing their entrepreneurial journey up until today. These startups were part of our 2021 and 2022 cohort and have shown outstanding transaction rhythm, which has put them on the lens in the Indian energy ecosystem. The first one to join us today is ExactSpace. ExactSpace builds energy-focused AI solution and to add human-like intelligence to asset across the energy value chain. It helps with two board outcomes for organization in power and oil and gas. Improve assets dependability and minimizes failures of critical assets. Reduces the carbon footprint and energy wastage in industrial complexes. Let's welcome Rahul, CEO and founder of ExactSpace. Over to you, Rahul.
First slide, please. Very good evening, everyone. Very nice to be here. I'm just going to narrate a story of one of our experiences. We were walking through a steel rolling mill, and it was a very normal day. And suddenly, while looking at it from a control room, we saw high loops of molten steel just flowing around in the plant. This is molten steel at about 980 degrees centigrade, and it was almost chasing people down on the floor. And this is exactly what happens in a lot of industries. There are a lot of these failures which happen in a very unplanned way, and unplanned failures in industries cost anywhere close to $100 billion each year in terms of productivity, and much more in terms of lost lives. When you look at something like a steel industry or a utility in oil and gas, it's not like they have a dearth of very advanced automation systems, and yet this happens. This happens because the existing automation systems don't have or act with context. So this steel rolling mill has a context of its own. It has its history of how it has operated in the past, how it has been maintained, what kind of metal has gone through it, etc., which an existing automation system does not capture very directly. And that is the problem that we are really trying to solve, because existing automation systems work on very static alarm-based issues. Add to it, a steel rolling complex is not one single simple asset, but it's probably hundreds of assets working together in a complex ecosystem, which could be generating maybe millions of data points in a day. And at the end of all of this data are us humans, and we are forced to make very approximate decisions of operating these plants. Pulse and exact space was created to take approximations out of process industries and bring more exactness to decision making on plants. We build very verticalized AI platforms, which is not just focused on pulling out alarms, but also providing actionable intelligence in terms of what operators in a plant need to do to respond and avert failures, to reduce shortages, so on and so forth. The first thing that we do is we provide contextualization to data. So in a system like a utility or in a steel rolling mill, we use historic data to understand and learn how that particular process or the asset has behaved in the past to help it avert any failures in the future. We build verticalized systems. We started with the energy domain, very complex setup like refineries and thermal power, which with almost 50 different classes of assets in them, and that is what basically drives a lot of intelligence in terms of actions for the users. And obviously around all of this, we've built a communication system which helps folks collaborate and troubleshoot very easily. Very, very large industry, like I told you, it's about almost $100 billion problem each year. But where we have done well is we've got possibly one of the largest deployments in India. We've got close to 75 power plants using our platform to operate more reliably and to reduce their carbon footprint. Close to $4 million in order book over our lifetime, and working with some of the largest industrial players both in India and globally. So one of our customers whom we started off with close to 3 years back, today have onboarded close to 40 plants on our platform. We work with the largest OEM of large-scale turbines and utility boilers in India. We work with multiple OEMs and industrial houses. We've also got won orders globally sitting from India with companies like ABB. We've got deployments in China, Finland, Argentina, so on and so forth. And in terms of how we've actually been driving this, the problem for AI is data. We are not obviously capable of generating data from a power plant, so our benefit really stems from the fact that we have a very large deployment base from which we have this data, the models being trained on all of this data, which makes deployment for the customer extremely quick. So time to value is almost less than 4 weeks for a full-scale power plant, which opposed to maybe about 6 months of time that our closest competitors basically take today. And in terms of a team, I think what is very important to drive value for customers is the combination of AI and very, very deep domain expertise. Our leadership team consists of people from the energy industry, close to about 35 years of work experience in leading utilities, and folks with primarily data focused experience. And what we have done is basically built a team of close to 60 people till date to deliver value. That's it from us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Exact Space. Today's last but not the least, our next alumni will take us into the future. EmbedSense is an industrial IoT product company that manufactures innovative industrial-grade sensors and offers end-to-end solutions. Powered by advanced analytics, their comprehensive machine monitoring suite can help manufacturing plants transform themselves into a smart factories of future. Please come join us here on the stage, Venkatesh Prasanna and Shubha Prasanna, co-founders of EmbedSense.
Hello everyone, I'm Venkatesh Prasanna, founder and CEO of EmbedSense Solutions, and I have my partner, Ms. Shubha Prasanna as well. So at EmbedSense Solutions, we are coming up with game-changing solutions for the discrete manufacturing industry. So the discrete manufacturing industry is also a huge consumer of oil, and this manufacturing industry has been valued at 20 billion as of last year and is growing at a healthy CAGR of 6.5% year over year. This is an ubiquitous industry, and the world would have been vastly different without this industry. This industry, like most of our other manufacturing sectors, is also under tremendous pressure for margins, mainly because of competition being global today. So while they realize the need for sustainable manufacturing, raking in profits is also a very critical aspect of it. So how do you accomplish both at the same time? The simple answer lies in going smart and going digital. So the challenges that this discrete manufacturing industry is facing is inconsistent part quality. So defect rates as high as 25% not only leaves money on the table, but it's actually very bad for the planet. So lack of visibility into most of these machines is the next big problem, because most of them have very little intelligence or electronics on them. That's why a large number of them are not digitizable at all to begin with. So machine failures are also very high, these being very complex subsystems with many power electronics, hydraulic packs, and so on and so forth. Downtime is very rampant and really hurts their production capabilities. Last but not the least, this industry requires very critical tuning of the manufacturing process, and skill shortages are commonplace. Most of these recipes exist as tribal knowledge amongst an experienced few, and that's a huge problem. See, so there's a critical urgency for this industry to switch to, let's say, an autopilot mode, and that's where EmbedSense is making the difference. With their end-to-end offerings of sensors, systems, and front-end applications, replete with AI and ML analytics, right? We have been able to deliver a complete digitalization solution for this particular industry. So here we are talking about sensorizing every aspect, every part and parcel that goes into the production process. I'm talking about the machines, I'm talking about the molds, we're talking about furnaces and everything else that is involved in the production process. So EmbedSense is providing a truly comprehensive solution for this sector. So how we are different is that we are able to come up with completely 100% data-driven quality assurance capabilities, as well as we have the ability to digitalize machines that have hardly any intelligence in them. I'm talking about the large asset base of legacy machines that most of these manufacturers have in their arsenal. So we also have the ability to preempt machine failures, and these machines are not simple rotary machines, very complex ones with many subsystems in them, and we have been there and done that. And our claim to fame is we can take any such machine and bring it onto the digital highway in less than an hour. So the opportunity here is big. Our SOM numbers are really attractive, mainly because of the large install base that is already out there that we can target. Our revenue streams are three-pronged, from the sale of our hardware and their associated AMCs, the subscription revenue that comes from utilizing our application platform as well. In terms of the traction, we have an esteemed list of clients, prospects, and partners that we are working with. Shell is also one of our partners who is taking our solutions to their end customers of oil. And we also have tie-ups with a couple of OEMs, which is actually paving the way for autonomous manufacturing. Shubha?
So our ask is of $1.5 million in the pre-series A, with which we intend to generate revenue of about $7 million in the coming 4 years. And our strategy would be to use these funds and proliferate into the domestic market to begin with. And then we are looking at entering the Southeast Asian markets. That's on the cards. And of course, we intend to get into the vast manufacturing space industries in the US. And we also intend to add on more capabilities with this fundraise. We are looking at developing end-to-end offering in the ancillary discrete manufacturing industries, which would be the extrusion industry and the stamping industries. Our success team has, it is a group of 16 passionate individuals. Venkatesh Prasanna leads the business. He takes care of the marketing and sales. He has a double master's, one in technology and one in business administration from University of California, Davis. And he is an 18-year veteran of Intel Corporation. I take care of the internal affairs of the company. I am an engineer by profession, having worked in multiple MNCs like Accenture, UC Davis, Verizon Wireless, Motorola, and Intel Corporation. And we have our guide in Dr. Greg Taylor, who is a well-known figure in the world, and our execution lead being the Ponmani. So this is our pitch here. So gone are the days of just smart manufacturing. We are entering into something called dark manufacturing in the setups, right? So dark factories are the buzz in the industry right now. And what is a dark factory? It is a lights out factories where manufacturing happens in the autopilot mode. And embed sense, is in the, making it a reality with its suite of state-of-the-art hardware and software end-to-end solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, EmbedSense. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about smart factories and how you guys are shaping the future. What a day. We have heard from some of the brightest and the most innovative minds today, and how they've been working big steps towards accelerating the new transition, not only in India, but across the globe. Today, AI is the energy sector that has been introduced in wide variety of use cases, from renewable integration, management, and more. In our current times, AI and the digitization have become two of the most important factors to guide the path towards most efficient energy practices and outcome without compromising to the environment. Social and economic relationships between these are effective and smart energy storage, using cooking oil for biodiesel supply, bio-waste, and the best practices for farming. The solution AI is building for the ecosystem. We know that the world is facing urgent climate and energy challenges, and while digitization alone is not solving the energy problem, it will help widespread the adoption of digital technology as one of the key achieving a net zero future. Thank you to our partners and mentors who have made this program an experience for the startup possible. See you tomorrow for another exciting demo day event on the energy entrepreneurship, E4 for Life, where we will deep dive into more energy entrepreneurship success stories. Investors, looks out for the startups in the ecosystem and panel conversations with the industry leaders and partners. As a final reminder, if you are an investor or want to invest in the potential commercial opportunities, click this Contact Startup button found on the unique startup profiles. Thank you all for joining today, and see you tomorrow.